guidelines that we should adhere to. That is to say, we must not abuse our body, because when we do, it will break down and malfunction, and as a result of that, we will be inadequate, and our lives will be haphazard, and it's detriment to our well-being.
So, here we have a condition where there seems to be a tension in us, there seems to be a physical conflict into using, and you say it's best that youngsters start. But, making people that tend to, when their brain just falling into that center, they tend to, do something mad on. Yeah. So if you've got that, stage, it's also happening. And that's when people first recognise that it is because people have to actually know what to look for. What would a parent want to do as a teenager? Well, this is one of the difficulties. So some of the things that we're looking at is if you start to think about typical teenager, they become moody, become isolated, and start to do things, maybe dabble in some drugs, start to do what their peers are doing. And it's hard to tell if they're actually experimental drugs or it's actually schizophrenia. So that's why it's very important that people actually observe what is happening. And also speak to friends as well and ask them what they observe. So when people then look back on it later, they usually say, I'm bored now, because hindsight, I remember when such and such event occurred, and this person started acting strangely, or they thought they were maybe hearing voices, or they had some thought about what's happening, which actually is thinking was there to live for the value system. And that's where, those sort of things are always useful. So on this issue of hearing voices, how does that fit with people's religious thinking and their beliefs?
That is a very amazing, I think a very good question actually, because one should be always aware, as a Christian, as such, we should not immediately lump everybody who say they're hearing voices as they are hearing voices because they're schizophrenic. And if referring back to the issue about the drug abuse, what we don't want to do is to mistake substance misuse psychosis for schizophrenia either, because experimenting with drugs can sometimes make people experience voices, experience things which is not very normal. But as a professional, we need to keep an open mind about the fact that we should not just automatically associate anybody who can hear voices and can be schizophrenic as somebody who is schizophrenia.
So in terms of hearing voices, what do we know where the study is concerned? Do people literally hear a voice? Do they say that they're actually hearing a voice? Or do they say that they are aware of thoughts?
Yes. That is where the defining factor is put, because they actually talk about hearing voice or voices. Often it might be voices of people that they know of, because that's where we are focusing how to differentiate whether it's the person's own thoughts that they're hearing, or is it something that is external to their own mind.
And these people, once they have gotten into this condition, society have a stigma that they places them into, whereby they become abnormal and are no longer classified as normal. And some people, even if they recover back to normality, that stigma follows them and is not able to be erased from their records.
I want to say the voice is something like that.
Yes,
I
certainly.
know in Christendom, the religious system is that God speaks to me, the Holy Spirit speaks to me, I speak in tongues. How do you differentiate between a person who is a deep-rooted Christian and someone who has a mental health issue like schizophrenia?
As a professional, I always say that if Jesus was among us today, we will have questions for him until that is now. Because there is not much similarity into what we read in the Bible and what could be presented as a religious person with schizophrenia, for example. And that is why, as a good professional, good clinician, we have to make sure that when we do an assessment, we make sure that there is no experience of a different nature that is there, that is causing the person's spiritual issues, plus giving them so the way that they are feeling. But we have to also be precise in the length of time that we leave to actually diagnose the person, because when we call this person schizophrenia, we don't diagnose from one day to the other. They need to have understanding symptoms of a certain say that at least 6 months, and then people to diagnosis, but also this other factors that we have to consider.
Well, my experience is that it's very true. You know, we do have to take into consideration the person's spiritual background, their beliefs and values. But the other thing is to make sure that the person isn't going to be some distress or in a situation where they're actually going to harm themselves. So we have to protect them from those sort of issues, from the hearing resources. If the voices are telling them to harm themselves or to harm others, that's when we need to really consider what's being said.
There is two schools of thoughts here, taking it to the very extreme. Because you have a group of people who say, I heard the voice of Satan and he told me to do it, especially in terms of what is considered to be maniacs. And so in that order people say that these people are deranged. Then you have the other end of the spectrum where people actually believe they are God. And it eludes me for the moment, but that's called something mania. I should have it in my notes here. But strangely enough, there are those people who actually believe that they are God.
Yes, what you're talking about now is when people have delusions of grandeur. This is the term that is used, and that's usually when a person believes they are a holy, entity or somebody who they actually are not, and it's not a part of their background. And that can happen to people who are sometimes suffering from a bipolar disorder.
That is a
quite manic, which is what you were referring to.
The mind, when we were on the program last time, we established that the mind was a very fertile place and can be influenced by so many different things. And schizophrenia is one of those manifestations of a mind that is troubled.
It is about the mind that's troubled, but it's also the fact that it's taking place at a time when the mind is still malleable. It's still, it's something that can still change and,
and
transformed.
So things actually influence it, the mind, cause the manifestation of. So, does schizophrenia ever happen to older people?
It can appear in older people. There's a different type of schizophrenia, but I don't think we've got time to actually go into that.
Oh, well, that's not
what we can. We certainly do that. But there can be people who are older who have schizophrenia, but usually it starts, and those people are usually ones who will actually be quite paranoid. It's called paraphrenia, which is this expression that is used of that type of schizophrenia. And that is in older people. But that's not as common these days as it has been previously.
And in terms of treatment, what kind of treatment would be available to these people in those conditions?
Right. Now, first of all, we need to make sure people who have that sort of condition actually have it diagnosed before they're treated, and they need to be treated by a professional. Now, if the person is saying, this is because of their spiritual background, and they need theological input rather than psychiatric input, then we need to consider that as well. There are many types of medication available. A lot of them are usually through injection, and there are other tablets as well. And those are the things that the psychiatrist will consider. There's also ways of actually looking at their way they're thinking, which is using cognitive behavioural therapy. And that's to actually help them to understand how they can minimise the thoughts that are distressing them.
Okay. From your experience, is that a similar thing that happens in your world, as it were?
Yeah, in terms of treatment, obviously once the person is diagnosed, obviously one of the things that also makes it for psychiatrists to be able to confirm that there is a lot of other symptoms that we need to consider with the condition. And if those symptoms are present, then...
What are some of those? What are some of the symptoms that you're talking about?
In terms of what we were referring to earlier, there's voices, there's delusional belief, there's paranoia.
Now, those are just long words. The delusional belief, paranoia.
Just briefly, give a little insight into
What's
this.
delusion?
Well, delusion is believing in something that is not there, it's not real, it's not tangible, it's not touchable. Paranoia will be if you believe, if you become over preoccupied that others might be there to harm you or you are harmed or at risk. grandeur delusion, which we referred to earlier, is about believing that you're God, you are born with superpowers, you have a special mission to accomplish. But also with that, those people will often have depression or extreme anxiety. If somebody was truly gifted, normally the depression meant that is not eradicated, and then the behavior around the person as well is typically different. They tend to self-isolate or neglect and become intense, and they need people to help and assist them to be able to put them back on track.
On the right track.
But in terms of treatment, I would go on saying that apart from medication, there's a lot of alternative therapy that is being looked at nowadays in terms of treatment as well. For example, the acupuncture in some places is being used, physiotherapy has been used. There's also a special team that is put us now, such as early intervention for people who have just been diagnosed with autism, that our medical group try to assist them with positive therapy.
And of course, the spiritual healing that is also a part. Because of course, man is a tripartite being. He is mental, physical, and soulish, which is body, soul, and spirit. And holistically, he has to be catered for the whole person. And of course, whilst medication and therapy and so on is good, but he also needs to receive godly instruction that deals with the soul. Because a lot of things are soulish. It's people's belief and has a religious connotation to it. And people live out their faith, their thought, their ideologies, and as a result of that, to some people it may be abnormal, and to others it may just be the fact that they are considered to be disabled.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. People are very different, and depending on their beliefs, will depend upon what is normal within the circle they are in. And taking on the point of spirituality, the Royal College of Psychiatrists suddenly, realised that actually this was a field that they needed to look at. And 10 years ago, they actually set up a group which was looked at spiritual interest groups, to actually look at what the spiritual aspects of a person are when they are actually suffering from these illnesses.
Indeed, because of course, spiritual is non-tangible. It's out of this world, of course. It's come from another dimension. And so it's worth understanding these 5 issues which will come into anxiety, mood, impulse, or substance. And it's worthwhile also knowing the percentage of the population that is more likely to be connected to these particular elements. For instance, bipolar is 4.7, just under 5% of the population. Specific phobias, social phobias, general anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, let me give you the figures. For instance, agoraphobia is 1.4% of the population, social phobias 12%, general anxiety 6%, post-traumatic stress disorder 7%, obsessive complex disorder just under 2%, and so major depression 16, just under 17% of the population is likely to suffer from that. I said bipolar disorder 4%, and then you come down to things like ADHD, 8%, alcohol abuse 13%, alcohol dependency just under 6%, drug abuse just under 8%, and drug dependence 3%, and so on. So somewhere out there, people are suffering under these conditions, and we want you to know that you need help, aid, help, support, and assistance. It's out there, it's to know where to get it, and When you do, it will put you back in control so that you will be able to live a healthy and a life of splendor and success.
So then, if someone is actually experiencing these symptoms, they're not sure what they are, relatives, friends, family, mother, father recognize it in their adolescence, what do they do? The temptation would be, it's not happening to me, or, what do they do?
Well, I think the main thing is for them to actually make sure they find out what the cause is, what is the reason that this person is feeling that way, and what can help them to actually get over that period. Because it may be something quite simple. It may be just a response that is to an event, and it may not be anything complex and long-standing. So they do need to get that support. And there is support for carers, there is support for relatives, and there are other organisations out there who will support people who have schizophrenia or who care for people with schizophrenia. And so there is that support there. But the first contact is the GP. And they need to go to the GP to make sure they get a diagnosis and get a referral to the right professional to do that assessment.
So what you're saying is, there are people watching who may not be familiar with the term GP. No, but what we're saying is that they need clinical contact.
Yes.
I think also there needs to be an understanding of the reasoning behind the behavior.
I mean, a lot of the time, research has actually shown that places and countries whereby these countries, the third world countries, actually have got a very good recovery rate. But by recovery, I don't mean total recovery, but because of family is around, there's a good network of people around people who are suffering from schizophrenia. It helps people to actually recover much, much more better.
We need family support.
We need family support. And the earlier that it is picked up and treatment is started, and the person is taken out of the stress and anxiety environment that they are in, it helps the person from coming out a bit more rather than isolating and allowing the illness to kind of creep over them.
Does it have to be a genetic family, or can it be a church family?
Oh no, it can be a church family. So this is one of the things we have found, that actually in different areas where they have the support system, they have a support network, that is what helps people to recover more quickly. And there has been research done in terms of looking at other areas of illness, in terms of when people have prayed for people who are unwell and how there have been differences. Under research circumstances where they've done it, it hasn't worked because they've actually been, the researchers have given them formulas and said, we want you to pray like this, which is very clinical, and that has been
clinical.
Exactly.
Not at all.
Exactly clinical. Prayer comes from the heart.
Yes.
Unpredictable. Yes, so that's why they can, what they try to do is say, like, we'll emulate this has happened where people have prayed for this person and this person has recovered. So let's do a research on it, let's do a study. And of course, you cannot, repeat that. Because that is
the Bible itself says, there's a saying that says that faith can move mountains. And in that itself, I think that's where the explanation is. That if you believe in that faith strongly, it can actually help and make some sort of miracle happen. Just
to another Liberty Hour. Thank the Lord that our lives have been